All right, welcome back. Now, as teens navigate an unprecedented period of a prolonged global crisis, concerns arise on the impact this is having on their mental health. Tonight, we have a rare opportunity to speak to a mother, Catherine Riungu, and her daughter, a teenage daughter, Alexis, as they candidly share what navigating this period has been like. We also speak to Dr. Carol Chakua, a psychotherapist, parenting coach, and author, on the current state of Kenyan teens and the challenges experienced in reaching this very critical generation. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Let me start with you, Alexis. It's been a very strange year, to say the least. I think it's the first time in a generation we are experiencing something of this magnitude. How has it been for you?
It's not been easy. It has never been easy. I mean, this whole thing started at a very young age. I was in pre-unit.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a very sensitive person by nature, and that was one of the reasons why I got walked on, even by teachers. Yeah, and the teachers actually started it.
So when you say this thing, what are you describing? The mental stress? How would it kind of show up?
How would it kind of show up? I'm not very trusting to anyone. I assume the worst out of everyone. That was one of the reasons I had a difficult time making friends. And I couldn't even take a joke. Yeah.
So you find yourself withdrawing. When did you feel it got to a point where it was almost a breaking point, right? And you mentioned how even teachers would contribute to it. How so?
They wouldn't help, or they would kickstart it. It started in pre-unit. There's this thing where the teacher made fun of me for crying about something. And it was at that moment when my classmates contributed to making fun of me. They'd steal my things, they'd push me, they'd say really nasty things to me, and it sort of became my identity from then on. And I've had a difficult time opening up. I recently opened up, it was just a few months ago, to my mom. She had no idea that I was going through this.
So do you feel it got worse during the pandemic, or it just exposed it?
It exposed it.
Okay.
Because I had plenty of time to think about my life, think about myself. I also had plenty of time to do my own research on mental health, and that's what gave me the confidence to come out.
Interesting. How old are you, Alexis?
I'm 15.
You're so self-aware for 15. My goodness. Catherine, you've done a good job.
Thank you.
What were you kind of going through when Alexis opened up and said, you know, hey, this is what I'm going through?
Frankly, I was a little surprised.
Yeah.
Because given our home environment, that is fairly supportive, fairly full of love, and fairly fun.
Yeah.
When she told me that she had mental anguish, I was a little taken aback, wondering why. And when I applauded her and she gave me the background of things that happened to her when she was in pre-primary school, I asked her why at 15 years, stuff that happened when she was like 5 years would be a bother. And now, I was telling her, Alexis, you have a good home, you have a supportive family, you have friends. I really do not understand how stuff that happened more than 10 years ago would be haunting you now. You know exactly what is your problem. That was my immediate reaction. But then we talked and talked and talked, and she told me that she wanted to see a psychiatrist. When she said that, I said, okay, maybe you have a problem. We had noticed that she has told you that she likes keeping to herself. She would spend a whole day locked up in her room. Alexis is the kind of a girl who stays in her room, operates between her room and the kitchen. You only hear her footsteps down to the kitchen, microwave, and up with her food, and that's about it. Then occasionally I would knock her door, and when I get in, she looks at me like, "You are invading my space, ma'am. Just leave me alone." And I never thought it was a problem.
Right.
Until we actually saw a counselor, and she said she has a problem.
It's interesting because what Alexis, at least from what you've said, was exhibiting, is probably normal teenage behavior. When they withdraw, there's a bit of an attitude, they want their space. And Dr. Carol, let me bring you in there, because for most parents, they could be saying, my teen son, my teen daughter is doing the exact same thing. Does that mean there is a problem? What should they be looking out for?
Difficult to draw a line and say specifically this is mental distress that a child is going through. So what to look out for really is the frequency and the intensity. Now, as a parent, you're not going to be able to diagnose if there's mental distress, whatever it is, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever it is they're going through. You are not able to diagnose because you're not a professional. But the thing is to look out for that, the intensity and the frequency. So if it's happening a lot more, whatever signs they are, whether they are withdrawing, or even on the other side, they are being aggressive, crying a lot, hiding from you, because now they could be also, sometimes mental health issues, distress comes also with substance use. And so they could be hiding from you because they are also using substance, and the reason they are using substances is to even get relief from the mental distress that they are having. And I don't think a lot of many things that might be scary, but the reality is that we really need to be close. And I'm glad to hear that Catherine, Alexis was able to come to you, and as much as you were taken aback, you actually still gave her space. And even allowed her to see a professional, because the first thing for a parent in that situation could be, we've done everything. If you're having issues, that means I'm a failure. I'm not a failure, so we're going to sort this out. We're going to pray about it. We're going to send you to your auntie to talk to you. So it's good that you are able to create that space for her to be open, to come to you. And again, we cannot be able to diagnose. We just need to leave that space open for them to come to, and then after that, if we then they can then be able to see a professional.
Right. Alexis, I want to come back to you, particularly on the point of how school was, I guess, an accelerant to what you're dealing with now, based on how teachers treated you, or if it was maybe other students. Now, after you've gotten some help, you've gone for counseling, do you find it's easier to navigate school, or it's still kind of difficult and it's still a trigger?
It's still kind of difficult. It's still a trigger, because it was recent. The time frame of missing a counselor is not that long for me to see any progress yet. So it's still very difficult. It's a battle every day. I have to fight the thoughts in my head. It's still very difficult. It's a process. Yeah, it's a process. I've been told that.
But while at school, do you get support? Is there a therapist? Is there a school counselor that you're talking to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is. It makes me feel a lot better. Talk to them, and I have very supportive teachers. I have very supportive friends as well. So yes, I'd say that it is.
It's interesting, Catherine, because you mentioned this earlier, that you were shocked by her revelation that she's going through this. Because in your mind, she has a stable home, supportive family. What else could be the problem? And then finding out that the place where she spends most of her time, school, was the problem. And that's a place that you can't avoid, because the child still needs to get an education. How did you come to terms with that? Did you have to have conversations with the school, for instance?
Vicky, what happened is that Alexis talked to me almost a week to going back to school. So the time to see a counselor was too short.
Yeah.
I think she underwent just one session, and then she went back to school. Then there was sort of a breakdown in our communication between the counselor we were seeing then and the school in terms of continuity. So when they didn't advise us properly, I felt kind of desperate, and I decided to visit her school. I had this fear that this girl has spoken to us for just a week. She's gone back to school. She expects to see people paying attention to her case. We've not communicated with school that she is undergoing this mental challenge.
Yeah.
So she may think that we dumped her in school and left everything to, like, we are happy to get rid of you and your problem. I went to school and I saw the guidance and the counseling teacher. She was very, very supportive, and she told me she was going to talk to her. I saw her on a Wednesday. She told me they were doing exams and she would speak to her as soon as they did exams and let me know whether it was a situation she could handle in school or refer to an external counselor. The school has a pool of counselors. So she called, actually she did, and I was very happy about it. Mrs. Ndirango, wherever you are, thank you very much for this. She told me she listened to Alexis, and she thought she needed an external therapist. So that's where we are, Vicky. At this point in time, we can't really tell a progress story because her situation is still afresh.
Which is why I find you rather brave and bold to come and even share it on a national platform like this when you're still trying to navigate it, still trying to figure it out. Why do you feel it's so important to bring it out now and to have other parents become aware that this could be happening to you too?
Because I don't want Alexis to give up. If she gets this idea that I'm not taking it as seriously as she thinks I should, then like she said, there's always that trigger or the temptation to relapse. So she needs to have the confidence that my mom is on this case, because if I'm helping her to fight, she will not give up. You know the role of a mother in a child's life. She just needs to see that I'm determined to see her navigate and win this battle. That's why we start off on the right footing. We'll continue until she gets a clean bill of health.
Alexis, I have to ask you this. Among your peers, are you finding that mental stress is becoming more of a problem?
Yes. Yes. In our class, no one has peace. Yes.
So what do you mean when you say no one has peace?
Everyone has the demons to fight in class, and everyone has shared them. And they're very difficult to listen to sometimes. You just find one person randomly crying and they won't tell you why. They don't trust teachers. I feel like there's a disconnect between students and teachers, and that's why we can't even disclose it off to anyone. And they don't even, I feel like it's either, I don't know if they're in denial or they're afraid of judgment because they don't want to seek help.
Well, your mom is a godsend, and I wonder if for a lot of your peers and friends, do they have the same response, maybe from their parents? You said teachers is an issue, but what about their parents?
I have one friend who came out to her parent because she underwent the same thing I did, and her mom's response was pretty similar to mine, although she did not see a psychologist, but they are talking it out. Yeah, but she's the only one who told me, because she's the only one that I know that actually talked to her parents.
Dr. Carol, as you're listening into this, and I know you also had a conversation earlier on with Alexis, what advice do you give parents now? Because this clearly is going to be a widespread problem. When I was speaking to another prolific psychologist in this country, Dr. Frank Njenga, and he said, as a result of this pandemic, we are likely to see an avalanche of mental disorders in this country. How do parents prepare themselves? Because yes, they're dealing with their own mental stress, but now helping their kids make sense of it all. You've just heard Alexis saying that her entire class is exhibiting mental stress. What do they do?
First of all, like you have said, Victoria, is that they are also going through their own issues as parents. And I think the first thing is to acknowledge that. To acknowledge that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So your own self-care and your own self-awareness, you need to prioritize that as a parent. And I know we are sacrificial, we want the best for our children, but you cannot help your child if you don't have your own tools of dealing with stress or dealing with anxiety, or even just being able to identify that you are in a tight space. So number one, take care of yourself. Make sure you're also getting support. You have a community surrounding you that you can get support from. That's number one. Number two, then get tools. Okay, and tools could be just bringing the community around you, because you can't do it by yourself. Okay, the other thing really in supporting our children, for me, it starts and ends with relationship. Okay, you can have so many, I said look for tools, but you can get all the best tools out there. But if it's whatever tools you're using to help your child manage stress and anxiety, if they're not being put in a space of relationship, and that is a healthy relationship where you are open, where you are allowing your child to come to you, and when they come to you, be that person that you're able to hold space for their emotions. We are very afraid of emotions. By nature, even as a culture, we don't want to talk about extreme emotions like anger and frustration. We want our children to be happy, even when they come to us. And my son sometimes comes home and tells me, "School today was the worst day, in my life, because one or two things happened in school." So I want to be able to sit and listen and hold space for him to express those emotions, whether they are negative or positive, and be able to support him so that he knows he can come to me. So as parents, even as we are looking forward, knowing that we are going to have to handle the effects of this pandemic for our children, we need to focus on ourselves first, and number two, support our children by really prioritizing the relationship. And we also just need to remember that that adolescence as a stage in itself just comes with stigma. So there's stigma in mental health, but there's also stigma that comes with adolescence. And we approach adolescence with a lot of fear, with a lot of trepidation, and we just want to arm ourselves so that we can work through and run through this season, so that we can come out of it when they are 19 or 20 still unscathed. Okay, and so when we send those messages that adolescence is a difficult period, that's what children soak in, and it becomes what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. They act out that way. So we need also to come into this space knowing that we might not have all the tools that we need, but we really have what it takes moment by moment to be able to support our children. So let's also get rid of that mentality. We need to change our mindset about what adolescence is, so that we approach it with a lot more hope and also looking for support.
Absolutely, and I must commend you once again, Catherine, because what you're doing is chipping away at that stigma that still exists in our society when it comes to mental illness. And Alexis, I want to kind of finish with you. I know you have a small surprise. If you can just sing that for us, the first verse, because we're very tight on time, and then just one word of encouragement you have to give to another teen watching who could be going through the same thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Should I start by singing? Okay. Hell raising, I'm ready for the worst. So frightening, face whitening, fear that you can't reverse. My phone has no signal, it's making my skin crawl. The silence is so loud. When lights spark and flicker with monsters much bigger than I can control now. Welcome to the panic room, where all your darkest fears are gonna come for you, come for you. Welcome to the panic room. You know I wasn't joking when you see them too, see them too. Welcome to the panic room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And, you know, what a beautiful voice.
Thank
the reason
you.
why we still need you around. So keep fighting. And what would you say to your peers who are watching tonight?
Don't give up. It's not as bad. Your parents, because one thing that I've realized about negativity is it robs you of everything that's good. I was so filled with negativity that I started seeing nothing good about my own friends, my own family, unfortunately. I even told her once. Yeah, it was difficult to trust them because I didn't see anything good. And I just want to remind them that it's not that bad. It's because we tend to magnify things and make it bigger than it seems. That's another thing. Is there's always going to be someone out there to support you. Oh, there's always going to be that one person to support you. And that's God, honestly. Even if you're friends or your family, because there are people who don't get supported by their own parents, you're not alone. You're not alone. So please keep fighting, because you deserve happiness. You deserve love. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alexis, Catherine, Dr. Carol. Thank you for your candor and coming in and your show of strength and support. It's a challenge to many, many parents in this country to start doing this and stepping up and standing up for their kids again. Very, very important. Thank you so much for watching Citizen Weekend. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Wilson Mushora. One Love is coming up next. Good night.